Climate Fact, your go-to program for the hard facts and clear insights on actionable solutions on climate change and its impact on our world. I am Ife Onyekere, your host and guide on this journey to understanding the challenges we face and the opportunities we have to actually create a sustainable future together. And together we'll be unpacking the science and, explore practical steps we can actually take to protect our planet. It's not just about the headlines, but it's about making a difference. So let's go in together. On the program today, we're going to tackle the realities of climate change and what they mean for you and I and our shared future. Today, we're having a conversation on Climate-Biodiversity Nexus, and we have a guest in the studio who is going to be breaking this down for us. You see, climate change isn't just about the distance between weather issues alone. It's also about here and now, about rising temperatures, unpredictable rains, and, environmental shifts affecting even our farms, water supplies, our cities, and down to our health. And for a country like Nigeria, it affects, it's even close to home because we've seen situations of flooding, in unexpected areas, desert encroachment in the north, coastal erosions threatening livelihoods even, in the south. And here's the thing, climate change isn't just a challenge, it's an opportunity, a chance to rethink about how we live, work, grow effectively from renewable energy to green jobs. There's so much potential to build a better and more resilient Nigeria. So let's go in together. Before we actually go in and I reveal who our guest is for today, we'll go on a short break, and when we come back, we'll continue the discussion on Climate Fact File.
Your guide to the science, stories, and solutions of climate change. Join Climate Fact File and be part of the change. Every Wednesday from 11 a.m. on the People's 105.5 FM, Abuja.
Welcome back. It's still Climate Fact File on People's 105.5 FM, and we're discussing Climate-Biodiversity Nexus, and we have a guest in the studio here with us, an amazing guest if you ask me, and he's the Director of Biodiversity Education and Resource Center. We have Dr. Andrew Ilo here in the studio here with us. Great to have you, sir. How are you doing today?
Thank you for having me. I'm fine, thank you.
All right, so we're going to be discussing, let's know the nexus between climate change and biodiversity. For those of us who are conversant, if you're listening and you've been hearing stuff about climate change, I'm sure you're also conversant about biodiversity, and that's what we want to look into today. Remember that you can join the conversation on our social media platforms at People's 105.5 FM, and you can also join the conversation on WhatsApp. The number to send in your contribution is 0911-112-1055. And on telephone, you can actually call in on 0911-222-1055. So right now, we're going to be taking the news around climate change.
We inform, we educate, we entertain. We are the People's 105.5 FM, Abuja.
Now for the headlines. NTF advocates stakeholder unity to combat environmental degradation. Nigeria explores climate finance strategies. Storm Dagger exposes UK's level of preparedness for extreme weather. The Nigerian Conservation Foundation, NCF, has called for collaboration among stakeholders to address environmental challenges. The organization made this call as it planted 5,000 mangrove near the National Theatre in Lagos. Speaking at the annual Green Ball in Lagos, NCF Director General Dr. Joseph Onoja highlighted the foundation's focus on mangrove restoration, biodiversity conservation, and climate change adaptation. Dr. Onoja called for strategic partnership to ensure sustainable solutions, urging Nigerians to join the fight for environmental preservation. Nigeria has progressed on its nationally determined contributions, NDCs, and strategies for channeling climate finance, which were key topics at the COP19 side event hosted in Baku. The session, led by Natural Eco Capital in collaboration with the National Council on Climate Change, highlighted the role of sustainable financing and private sector engagement in achieving climate goals. Experts, including the African Development Bank, emphasized the need for innovative financial tools to advance Nigeria's climate resilience and green growth. Head of Climate Change Commission in the United Kingdom has warned that the United Kingdom is not prepared for the kind of extreme weather seen with Storm Dagger. Report says the storm, which hit the country with 96 miles per hour wind over the weekend, led to the loss of 2 lives. Emma Pinchbeck, the new head of the Climate Change Commission in the United Kingdom, says the country is off track in preparing for the future challenges like floods and extreme heat, despite its net zero commitment by 2050. She called for urgent upgrades to homes, cities and flood defenses, warning that the cost of inaction could run into billions. And that's it on climate news around the world. Before we go further, I want our guest, who is an expert in diversity matter, to react to the news about the Nigerian Conservation Foundation calling for collaboration, among stakeholders to address environmental challenges. How would you react to this news, sir?
Yeah. Thank you very much, Ife. First of all, I want to congratulate the NCF for taking that bold step to planting those mangrove trees at the National Theatre. If you recall, all of us that grew up in Lagos recall that the National Theatre, all around the National Theatre, it's all mangrove. And because of the developmental strides in Lagos, that mangrove around the theatre, it's drying up. And mangroves generally all over the world, whether found in Lagos or in the Niger Delta, holds or houses large biodiversity. For example, fishes use the mangrove as a place or habitat for reproducing. So if the mangroves are not there, invariably many organisms or many other animals like the fishes will also disappear. So NCF planting those mangrove trees has both direct and indirect impacts on our environment. Direct impact is that they are restoring the natural ecosystem of that community. Indirect impacts that fishes, organisms and every other living things found in water that use the mangrove to breed will find a place for them to continue to survive. Hence, conserving or increasing the amount of biodiversity for Lagos State. So it's a welcome development. I congratulate them.
Amazing. That was the voice of Dr. Andrew Ilo you just heard. And we're going to go on a music break right now. When we come back, we're going to head straight to the streets to hear the reaction of some people regarding issues about biodiversity. And then we'll go further to the interview section. We'll be right back.
Christmas, my favorite time of the year. When the jolloff's always sweeter and the chicken's always bigger. Wait, but remember, yes, remember, just remember, love's the bottom line at Christmas time.
Mr. Producer, let's not forget 10% of streaming costs for layout. That's okay. Hello, my dear. We are not doing talking this Christmas. Go to market and find me an ostrich.
Don't go thinking a fugazi, whether on a house or a pool party. If we like, we go party to 5 December, we are coming outside. Christmas is the best season to chop rice and to chop chicken. All of my guys get the dough with the tiger. All my girls gonna show with the fine clothes.
And you know, love is available. This special miracle is nothing without love. Let it show, show everywhere you go. Tell everyone you know. The reason for the season is your loving and your giving.
Christmas always brings us together. From every December, we party like never before. Our matter cannot stop us never. No matter the weather, we go gather together. Angels sing.
left, right, Tedijo to the left, right. Oyibiri call me next, like Oya Faboyo, Fashibiyo, Iyabeji ti dano, Keresimesi tutide, Orankara Ojese Moya.
All right, welcome back. It's still Climate Fact File on People's 105.5 FM. We're discussing Climate-Biodiversity Nexus, and we have in the studio Dr. Andrew Ilo, who is the Director of Biodiversity Education and Resource Center, and he's been giving us, back to back. Well, you've not even seen anything yet, okay? So just sit there and relax and enjoy this conversation. Remember, you can actually contribute to the conversation on 0911 1121055. Let's hear your reaction. Let's see what you have to say about the topic before us. Climate change is here with us right now. It's not something we're foreseeing or saying it's for some sect of people, but it's happening right here, right now. So we're going to move straight down to Climate Voices. On this segment, we hit the streets to hear what regular people know and think about climate change. From the young to the elderly, we're gathering voices from the walks of life to understand how climate issues resonate with everyday Nigerians. And so the questions we are actually asking today is, have you noticed any changes in your local environment, such as fewer trees or hotter weather? Let's hear what the audience have to say. All right, we'll be right back.
The cause of this can be classified into two. One, it could be natural, and the other one, it could be human. Let me begin with the human aspect. The human aspect is directly channeled to deforestation. Of course, deforestation refers to the indiscriminate felling of trees without the intention of replacing them. Now, we have the need for us to fell trees, but there should be a proper regulation on the rate at which trees are felled, more especially if the felling of the tree is an indiscriminate one. Of course, we need trees to get papers, to get timber, to get furniture, and so on, but we shouldn't do it to the detriment of the environment. Okay, so deforestation can actually result to less trees in the environment, because the more you cut down trees without the intention of replacing them, the fewer the trees become. So fewer trees can be caused by man when man carries out deforestation. Secondly, fewer trees can be as a result of desert encroachment into an area, and desert encroachment can be traced to climate change. Climate change linked to drought. When there is a long period of drought, anyways, drought means a lack of water for a very long period of time, resulting to the gradual wilting and death of plants. So when there is drought for a very long time, there will be desert encroachment, and as desert encroaches into an area, there will be a drastic, or let me not use the word drastic, there will be a gradual elimination of plants within that environment. Of course, plants need water to make photosynthesis complete. Photosynthesis refers to the process in which plants make use of carbon dioxide and water to manufacture their own food. So if there's carbon dioxide in the environment and there is no water for the plants to use to manufacture their own food, photosynthesis will be cut short. And if photosynthesis is cut short, plants will not grow. If plants do not grow, they will be annihilated from the environment. So drought can actually result to a desert encroachment, from there to having fewer trees in the environment. So fewer trees in the environment can be caused by man. It can also be as a result of climate change. Trees have broad leaves, and these broad leaves have what we call, in pluralized form, stomata. Stomata of the leaves release oxygen into the environment, and oxygen has an amiable feature, and that amiable feature is that it has the ability to cool the air, to cool the atmosphere. There is an opposing gas in the environment called carbon dioxide. Carbon dioxide has the characteristic of warming up the environment. So when plants release this oxygen into the environment, they tend to cool the environment. So when you carry out deforestation, for example, or when there is desert encroachment, or when there is drought for a very long period of time, that results to the reduction in the number of trees in the environment, there will be less evolution or release of oxygen into the environment.
In my environment, I must have to relate it. we have fewer trees, and these trees, history has shown or has said that there were trees all over the places, but because of urbanization and maybe population increase, because of making efforts to build places to live, a lot of forests have been deforested, and so we are experiencing fewer trees and then more houses, then exposing the whole environment to direct sunshine. So I feel the possible cause of this is simply urbanization and population increase. Yes, it will have an effect on the environment in terms of flooding, because when it is exposed to direct sunshine, the ice around the riverbanks is melted, and then it increases the volume of water, which leads to overflooding. And so I think that's the effect of this whole exercise of deforesting forests.
All right, so that was the voice of the streets we just heard. Well, if you ask me, I've noticed fewer trees. Doctor, have you noticed? What have you noticed? Let's start from you.
Well, I've noticed that the rains don't come in at the right time, and even if they come, they go early. I remember those good old days. We used to have what we call August break.
Exactly.
A full 1 month August break, but this year the August break was less than a week. So it means that the climate is actually changing. And when these are weather events, and if these weather events are occurring, then that means every other thing is taking a nosedive. Because we are human beings,
exactly,
and we're able to adapt, doesn't mean that things are not happening. A lot of things are happening. I could also remember those good old days. I actually grew up in Meduguri, when it's Harmattan, it's full-fledged Harmattan, but now it's no longer that way. Harmattan it's very, very short. Before you know it, we'll only have in January, we'll start having the real dry season, which is not supposed to be so. And so you find out that because of these weather changes, the weather patterns are invariably altered. And as it's altered, all organisms, all the biological systems too are also being altered. Even human beings. Yes, there's a huge change in our ecosystem and organisms.
And I also noticed, this heavy dust, replacing the Harmattan, period. Because you almost find everyone having, symptoms of, I have catarrh or something like that. It's just so much dust and wind, replacing the Harmattan that we regularly have. And interestingly, I actually had a cold water bath this morning. It would never have happened, some years back, right? Because I'm just saying this to say that there are lots of changes, a lot of things are actually going on, and that's why we're having conversations like this. All right, okay.
Yeah, let me just react to what you just said. It's true. We are having the desert is fast encroaching, it's fast moving down south, and of course the deserts are less trees, more of haze, more of sand dunes and sandstorms. So what you feel now that the plenty dust in the atmosphere is as a result of that. We have less trees or less barricades. We are continuously having vast open lands where these winds come and move this dust across the region. So that's why dust.
Could it also be increasing as a result? Can we also attribute this to probably the depletion of the ozone layer or something?
Not really, but I could say that it's deforestation, reduction of the barriers. The lesser the barriers, the more these sand dunes have their way. I cannot tell you that the sand dunes have even gotten up to Bauchi State.
Wow.
Yeah, the beginnings of Bauchi State. Yobe is gone. Borno State is gone in terms of desert encroachment. And I can tell you now for sure that Bauchi is also almost going to desert encroachment. Wow. With the ozone, with the some things that they have done with regards chlorofluorocarbons, I think our ozone is healing. but it's not about the ozone this time around. It's about our changing climate caused mainly by our human activities. Fossil fuels, for example, it's what is causing the problem.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Thank you. So if you're listening to us, we're discussing Climate-Biodiversity Nexus. Have you also experienced or noticed changes in your environment, regardless of where you're listening to us? Send in your contribution, send in what you've noticed about your environment to 0911 112 1055. All right, so let's dig in. I wanted you to tell us how Nigeria's rich biodiversity, such as Niger Delta mangroves and grassy savanna areas, contribute to regulating our climate both locally and globally.
Oh, thank you very much. Trees generally are said to be carbon sinks. What they do is that they take in carbon dioxide or carbon dioxide, as the case may be, and give out oxygen. Let me ask, how many of us, when they go under the trees in the sun, it feels very cool, very very palatable to stay under.
True.
Yeah, even in the night. In the daytime, is because in the daytime trees are able to take in carbon and give out oxygen. However, in the night is the other way around. So trees, whether in the mangrove or whether in the savannas, play an important role in taking in the carbon. It acts as carbon sink. As a matter of fact, peatlands, that is wetlands, which the mangrove or the Niger Delta is part of, has the highest potentials for taking in carbon. So if these wetlands are not there, if these trees are not there, that means this carbon will not be taken in. So that's the reason why we are always advocating for the conservation of our biodiversity, our trees per se, because they act as carbon sinks to our environment.
Amazing. Wow, so this is a call for us to pay attention to the trees around us.
Absolutely.
Amazing.
Whether it is grasslands, big timber trees are very important. It's always advocated that plant a tree. If you cut one, plant 10. Cut 2, plant 20. Because trees have a very important role to play in regulating our environment.
Knowing that trees have a very important role to play, are there rules that deal with people who actually carry out unjust activities regarding felling of trees and all? Are there things because it seems like this is actually it's something that affects us even down to our health, right? So are there policies that actually guides the regulation of cutting down of trees? Are there punishments? What have really been done in the past and what is really on ground to ensure that we're actually protecting these things?
Well, there are environmental laws that with regards to felling of trees, regards to going into areas which have been designated conservation areas, national parks. You cannot just go into the national park and cut down trees. So there are laws per se. Maybe what we would need to emphasize more is sensitization of our communities, of our people. People feel, trees are trees. They can just grow and cut and you plant another one and they grow. So, but if our communities, if everybody, if the Nigerian populace are really aware or are sensitized and are aware of the roles of which these plants play or these trees play, I think we'll have less cutting of trees while looking for alternatives to fuel wood, because most times trees are not just cut because the people want to cut down the trees. They are cut because they want to use them as fuel wood for cooking. So if we find alternatives to that,
cheaper alternatives.
Cheaper alternatives, I think we'll be able to start solving the problem.
When I was giving the introduction, I said climate change is not just about the problem, but also about opportunities. So I think it's time for that Nigerian listening to us right now to start thinking, because innovation actually starts from the mind. And before you know, someone is bringing out something else. We don't have to cut trees, but something cheaper, because Nigerians will actually tilt towards what is actually favorable, because it might be eco-friendly, but if it's not cheap, trust me, especially those in the rural communities, where do they go to? How do they turn to, right? So I think we need to start thinking, and even our educational system also has to be programmed in a way that people can think and look for, solutions. It doesn't have to come from outside the country. Like I always say, we're very intelligent people. Nigerians are really very intelligent, and I believe that conversations like this can actually strike in the heart of someone to actually, do something very amazing. All right, so we want to, move to the next question that I have here for you that says, what specific threats are Nigerian ecosystem like wetlands and rainforests facing due to climate change?
It's drying up. The wetlands are drying up. The deserts is fast encroaching. Like I said before, deserts are even almost getting up to Bauchi State, some Kano. The weather is changing. We don't get the rains when they were supposed to come. Yeah. And they go very early. We get the harmattan, very short harmattans, and we are in a very long dry season. So these are concrete evidence that something is happening to our environment, something is happening to our climate, and this is brought about by climate change. And so we need to find solutions to help in either adapting or mitigating these effects.
Now, before we even go to that climate change, the climate adaptation, you actually, because I want people listening to actually find this very relatable, because all these things that my guest, who is an expert, is mentioning, is as a result of human activities, is also part of these issues, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So can you tell my audience some of the things that they are doing that is making me not to enjoy Harmattan? That is making me not to enjoy Harmattan, because this is one of the weathers I look forward to. At least you can apply your cream, no matter how, and you look very fresh. You see the way I'm looking fresh. I would have been fresher. So I needed to actually relate it to them and tell them, what we're actually doing that is actually causing this depletion, and we're not enjoying what we should be enjoying.
Our over-dependence on fossil fuels, our over-dependence on chemicals, pesticides, herbicides, deforestation. These are some drastic effects that are bringing about these problems. Where our agriculture is over dependent on chemicals, on pesticides. This is a problem.
Farmers, please, can you hear?
Where we are over dependent on petrol. Is a big problem. So this, in as much as we might not be able to phase out these things in total, we can curtail, we can have sustainable management of that. So these are some of the problems.
Amazing. Please, if you're listening and you know that you are defaulting in these areas, I'm also speaking to myself too, because you mentioned over dependent on fossil fuel.
Yeah, charcoal. The use of charcoal is a big problem, because they cut down these trees to make charcoal. Charcoal business is a very big problem. So we need to find alternatives to all these things.
Wow. I believe we actually heard this, and it's time for us to take action. We're not just having conversations like this because we want to talk, but it's to also create this awareness. You've seen the changes. There are happenings in your environment that you know that this is not the way it used to be, right? And we've heard from our expert in the studio, Dr. Andrew Ilo, who has told us some of the activities that we are actually engaging in that is causing a depletion in the environment, right? So we need to put things right. Remember that you can actually send in your contribution on WhatsApp to the number 0911 112 1055. We're going to go on a break right now, and when we come back, we'll continue the conversation. All right, welcome back. It's still Climate Fact File, and I'm Ife Onyekwere. We are discussing Climate-Biodiversity Nexus, and we have a guest in the studio who has been enlightening us on the issues surrounding climate change, the issues surrounding biodiversity, and also the action you should also carry out, because the goal of this program is to ensure that we are all taking action at the end of the day. So you mentioned farmers. I was going to ask, what steps local farmers and rural communities because we find out that most rural communities, engage in farming because of the way their environment is. What steps can local farmers and rural communities take to protect biodiversity while adapting to the changing climate?
Perfect. That's a very good question. Let me use one or two projects we have done as an example. We have advocated for what we call an agroecological way of farming, where farmers adopt, do farming that are agro-friendly or agroecological friendly. They use less chemicals, for example, more of organic farming. That's one. We have also advocated, and we have farmers, the local communities, create what we call home gardens of their indigenous plants. They start creating home gardens, hence reducing their dependence on the ones in the forest, because that also depletes the forest biodiversity. So by having those plants that you go to the forest to go get in your home gardens, you are achieving two things: having them at your beck and call. You are protecting those ones in the forest because you will seldomly go there. And the third one, which is more important, because you have enough, you start making money. You start selling. These are one of the projects we have done to look at biodiversity conservation. Another project we have actually done around that is for a community to have what we call community seed banks, where they conserve their local seeds, over time. Because what we know is that over the time, many of these hybrids will come, the indigenous seeds, which have resilience, has been built over the years, over decades in that community will go. So we're encouraging them to store them in modern seed banks. Mind you, it's not that they don't store, they do. But what we are now bringing in, we are bringing in some form of innovation, some form of science and technology to boost their indigenous knowledge for them to store these seeds. So these are some of the projects we have done at community level, basically with women farmers, because we believe that women are actually the custodians of biodiversity. So women, 80% of women are engaged in these projects, and they have been successful, in the places we have carried them out.
Amazing. Wow. Okay, so I want us to then move to the cities. For those in the cities, Abuja, Lagos, Ibadan, Port Harcourt, some of all these cities, So how can urban areas contribute to biodiversity preservation through green spaces or sustainable city planning?
You've already answered it now. Green spaces, urban cities. So anytime I pass through Abuja, especially these new estates, I'm always very sad because they are building new estates, and they are not bringing in some form of green spaces, or maybe they are, but they are not enforcing.
Real estate people, can you hear this?
But they are not enforcing green areas or in those new estates. It's very important that government, for example, in the FCT parks, the environmental people, can ensure that one of the things that a new estate must do must be to have green spaces. Must be to have rooftops that are green roofs. By green roofs, it's not green. It's not the painting that the roof is green, but having that you plant cover crops on your roof that are green. They're insisting that you have homes sort out their wastes. These are some of the things that, because you cannot start it with, you can't start it with like Papi. No, because it will take a lot of time to change people's mentality. But if you study with all these new estates springing in, people coming into those estates, we understand that these are what we are supposed to do in these estates. Have green areas, have green roofs, able to sort out your waste. But
when you say sorting out your waste, could you highlight?
Now, good, fine. Yeah. Sorting out waste are in 3 or 4. You have sorting out the cartons, the paper, sorting out the bottles, sorting out the bottles and the cans, as well as sorting out the biodegradable materials. So normally what we do in Nigeria is to put everything together. But with you sorting these waste out, it's easier to collect, it's easier to recycle, because if you have everything, and it's easier to make organic manure, because all those biological materials goes into landfills that can actually use in making organic fertilizer. So if we're able to enforce this with these new estates, I'm sure that the generations to come will now take it in the educational system. If you want to phase out an old policy, you don't just phase it out. You just start introducing it gradually. Before you know it, the old policy goes out and everybody adapts the new policy. So if you can do that with regards to urban cities and greens and environment, I think it will work.
Amazing. All right, so I want us to now tilt towards the side of the role of the government in balancing economic development, such as oil exploration. So what exactly should be the role of the government to ensure that everything is balanced, because we need to protect biodiversity and combat climate change. So as regarding the role of the government in balancing economic development, such as oil exploration, where do the government come in?
Okay, perfect. Let me start by saying that the reasons we have not taken biodiversity conservation serious is because we've not really put an economic figure to biodiversity. We need to put some form of money. We should, when you say I'm losing 10 billion naira, it's easier to relate than saying 200 crocodiles are dying every month. So if you say that 200 crocodiles that the biodiversity worth is about 10 billion, people will relate to that. So I think if we start by putting some monetary figures to our biodiversity, we will start and know that biodiversity actually has some economic value for us in Nigeria. And linking it with oil exploration, we should have oil explorations that are environmental friendly. Government is time. There's a PIB law, which I'm sure it takes care of biodiversity and environmental issues. I will advise government to strictly enforce those laws, so that in as much as the oil companies are exploring, they also have a role to protect the communities where they are exploring, as well as the ecosystem and biodiversity in those areas that they are exploring.
Great, amazing. Young people are, if we don't carry them along with what's going on about the discussion of climate change, about, because they are the larger population of, the nation, and we need to involve them in what's going on right now. I would want to ask, as an expert, how do you think young people and community-based organization, let me join them together, in Nigeria can actively participate in biodiversity conservation to support climate resilience in the country?
Yeah, first of all, sensitization. We need to know. Most people don't know. Most people think it's just normal. Secondly, for the youths, we need to tweet it towards what they like. We have a lot of youths are tech savvy. They love tech things. So how do we sensitize them on climate issues and biodiversity conservation issues around technology? Creating of apps that could show that, making them know. It's not just about saying climate change is this, climate change is that.
That's right.
Speaking big grammars and putting big textbooks. How do we create animations? How do we create videos that are that can relate to what we are talking about? So these are some ways you can have these young kids get involved in the fight against biodiversity loss or climate change issues. For communities, sensitization, like I said before, we need to carry them along. You cannot just go to a community and dump a project. The community must own that project. The community must be at the forefront in all aspects of that project. With that, I can assure you that those community will. Nobody wants his or her village to go extinct. So you must make them understand that these things you're doing, it is for you. It is you that will do it.
That's right.
And I can assure you that we will get there.
Amazing. So right now, it's time to share success stories, because I believe you've been engaged in one or two projects and all like that. So or are there success stories you've also heard about, or you can really relate to, that probably that's happened or ongoing in Nigeria, where protecting biodiversity has significantly helped mitigate climate change impacts? And what can we actually learn from these efforts?
Well, I mean, you during the news, you heard about the NCF mangrove. Story.
Amazing, yeah.
That's a success story. And many other stories that are out there. I talked about our own project around agroecology. I talked about seed banks. I talked about home gardens. These are success stories. And I can assure you that there are many success stories out there. What the civil space needs to do is to bring in these pockets of success stories to relate to each other, so that we can know that, oh yeah, this is every success story that we've had in Nigeria. As per success stories, a lot of success stories have been achieved, and we are still doing more, and we are still advocating for more.
Great. All right. Before we continue this conversation, I want us to go on a break. When we come back, we're going to hear the voice of a stakeholder as regards climate change issues, and we'll also react to it. Then we'll go back to the interview questions. We'll be right back.
The climate is changing, and so should we. Climate Fact File, your weekly dose of awareness, action, and answers. Wednesday, 11 a.m. on your favorite radio station, People's 105.5 FM, Abuja.
All right, so it's still Climate Fact File here on People's 105.5 FM. We're discussing Climate-Biodiversity Nexus, and on this segment right now, we call it Climate Watch. It's time to turn the spotlight on additional voices that matter in the fight against climate change. And in this segment, we hear from key stakeholders, leaders, experts, and activists, sharing their perspective on the pressing issues of climate change, from international organizations to grassroots movements. We're bringing you the sound bites that are shaping policies, inspiring actions, and mobilizing communities towards a more sustainable future. So right now, we'll be listening to the voice of Chair, House Committee on Climate Change and Security. We're listening to the voice of Nkem Kama.
The climate crisis is no longer looming threat, but a present and undeniable danger, inflicting devastation upon our nation. Its merciless assault is evident nationwide, from the relentless surge of sea levels threatening our coastal communities to the crippling droughts and ignite farmer headache conflicts and exacerbate food insecurity in Nigeria. The frequent and violent extreme weather events, such as floods and heat waves and violent extreme weather events, ravage our economy, displace vulnerable populations, and overburden our strained infrastructure. Climate change poses an existential threat to our nation, continent, and indeed the entire world. It is a threat that exacerbates existing vulnerabilities and undermine our hard-won development gains. With urgency and determination, we must act now to address this very crisis. Recognizing this urgent challenge, Nigeria has demonstrated its commitment to climate action through various initiatives, most notably our ambitious nationally determined contributions under the Paris Agreement. We have pledged to unconditionally reduce greenhouse gas emissions by 20% and 47% conditionally by 2030. However, a recent review of our progress over the past 9 years reveals that while we have made commendable strides in various areas, we have yet to realize the ambitious goals outlined in our NDC fully. This underscores the need to significantly accelerate our efforts and mobilize the necessary resources to achieve our climate goals. Despite the challenges we remain steadfast in our commitment to a sustainable future in Nigeria.
All right, we just heard the voice of the Chair, House Committee on Climate Change and Security, Kama Nkemkama. And I want you to react to that voice we just heard right now.
You could also feel it in the Honorable's voice that he is really, really sad.
You know, when he said on the trees undermining.
Yeah, of what is happening with regards to climate change in Nigeria. Yes, in as much as we've made massive strides, especially with our NDCs, we need to work harder to realize the NDC. And from the legislative point of view, they should also give us enabling laws that could help us achieve those NDCs. And from the executive side, able to implement those policies or laws which the legislators have enacted with regards NDC. So yes, I feel his pain. His pain is my pain. I'm sure it's also your pain.
Yeah.
You know, but if we work together, it's a call. It's a clarion call for us to work together to make sure that we are able to have solutions, have innovative. That's the word. Innovative solutions that could help us combat climate change, especially conserving our biodiversity. Because I need to say this, that some international report is saying that if we don't protect our biodiversity, in the next 10 years we'll be losing a billion species, and that is no joke. One of the problems has been attributed to climate change. So what we have here in Nigeria, we need to join hands together to protect them with innovative solutions.
You know, when you talked about synergy, you talked about coming together to, join force together. There are so many policies that have been made as regards, the climate change issue. Even we had so many delegates in the last in the COP 29 that just passed, and I think there's even the COP 16 in Saudi Arabia right now. And so many of those kind of programs, and we have representative delegates and all like that. But when you come to let me use the word, the common man, we come to the regular Nigerian, it seems like there is a bridge, there is a gap. Policies are happening here and people do not really know what's going on. How do we fix this?
Yeah, we've seen this. That's why we've always advocated and recommended bottom-top approach. Let's start the policy thing from the grassroots, from the communities, then take it up. Then from up, down, backwards to the communities. So if that is done, normally what we have seen is the top-bottom approach. But if we go the other way around, I think these things will work. We cannot just start from the international negotiations. We need to bring back those we need to cascade those international negotiations down at the community level. Then from there, gradually take it up back to the government or the national level.
Amazing.
Yeah.
All right, so I want us to go on a music break right now, and when we come back, we'll continue this conversation. Climate-Biodiversity Nexus. We'll be right back.
The land is green, it's green, oh, oh. The land is green, it's green, can't you see? I can see, oh, the harvest is ready, 'cause he told me so. It's green and it's all mine. As the clouds go gray, the thunder roars and the earth sings. The season's just beginning. Sunlight it hides as the clouds make way for the pouring of my blessings. I will not be afraid. I see it now, I understand, I know. So I embrace it, dance in the rain. It's for my seed to grow, for every prayer and every seed I've sown. Lord of the harvest knows I'm reaping back 100-fold. The land is green, it's green, oh, oh.
The land is green, it's green, can't you see? The harvest is ready, 'cause the Lord of the harvest told me so. It's green for me. It's green for me. Standing alone can be a heavy load, but my vows I won't be breaking. Though my heart is aching, I got a word and I won't let go. It's your will I'm seeking, so I keep on believing. I see it now, I understand, I know, so I embrace it, dance. Once again it's time for me to grow. For every prayer and every tear I've sown, Lord of the harvest knows I'm reaping joy 100-fold. The land is green, it's green.
We've been having a very interesting discussion here in the studio, and trust me, you really want to be involved. Everyone needs to be involved. The issue about climate change is not left for some people or some sect of the society. It's about every one of us. It's coming fast. Things are changing very fast in the environment, and whether we like it or not, we all need to be involved. And then we have an amazing guest in the studio who has been helping us, do justice to the topic before us, Dr. Andrew Ilo, who is the Director of Biodiversity Education and Resource Center. Before we went on that music break, I talked about, the gap in knowledge and all like that. And interestingly, your organization is focused on education and a resource center. So what exactly do you do about biodiversity?
Okay.
Because I think I need to fire you a little bit.
Yeah, thank you. Well, the Biodiversity Education and Resource Center, BEC for short, it's a not-for-profit organization.
Okay.
It's a nexus of scientists, because we are all scientists. Nexus of scientists that have come together or are at the forefront of biodiversity research, moving our biodiversity research to development, as well as land rights issues. So it's scientists. We have scientists in the university, scientists in research institutes, doing research, but feel that their research shouldn't just stop as publishing papers or doing scientific lectures, but how can we move our science, our research to development? So that's why we came together to form this organization. So most of our projects we have done are actually products of scientific research, and that's why they are very successful, because you have taken a look at it from the scientific point of view, you have looked at it from the negative, the positive, then you are bringing it to a community. We have adopted quite a lot of communities in our projects. In Abuja here, we've adopted the Sheda village. We have another community in Yangoji. We have a community in Owerri, Obinze, where we did the home gardens project. The Sheda project, we did the seed bank project. So these are some communities where we move our researches to development. We are in partnership with a lot of organizations, NCF, United Nations organizations, the UNDP, UNEP. Those are some of people that see that what we are doing is good and say, okay, let's fund you to move this work to community level. So yeah, that's what we do. We are non-profit, but the beauty about us is that we are scientists that have dedicated our lives to science, to research, but transferring our research to development, not undermining the indigenous knowledge of those communities. We are only to enhance what they know.
Thank Amazing. You. So I wanted to encourage a young person listening to you right now. If probably someone is saying, how do I go into this scientific research you talked about? Probably I'm a science student, or are these strictly for science students?
No, climate issues and biodiversity issues are not just for science people. Anybody. You have the people, and it's people and environment. People is the sociology aspect of it.
Amazing.
The political aspect of it. So there's a lot around biodiversity conservation that is not just pure science. How can you get people to understand or adopt? That's not science. That is anthropology. That is sociology.
Amazing.
So anybody can actually go into conservation of biodiversity or climate change issues, but the person has to read, has to get knowledge.
Did we hear that?
We must read. We must get knowledge first. Then when you get knowledge, you're able to think out the gaps. Where do I now fit in with what I know into this conversation?
Amazing. All right. So so this is a call for those of us who are listening and probably, I don't have a job, or I want to start something new and all like that. It's a call to come into the climate change community, right?
Absolutely.
All right, because I believe that there are still more research to be done.
A lot.
And more findings to actually be gotten for development's sake. Amazing. All right, so we're actually coming to the end of this program, unfortunately, because I've been having fun here.
Me too.
Yeah, so I wanted to, give us takeaways from this episode. I wanted to give us takeaways, what should we, from everything we've said. We've looked at the intersection between climate change and biodiversity, and I wanted to tell the audience what should we be doing now. There was something you mentioned, you talked about sorting waste. It's very relatable. Now we can tell people, sort your waste, don't just, and the interesting part, for people who would definitely sort their waste, like plastic waste, it can be sold.
Absolutely.
So that's why I say there are opportunities attached to these climate change issues, right? Yeah. So what should we be doing from the farmers? You mentioned the farmers, Nigerians as as the people, those in rural communities, those in urban centers. Just give us cutaways. What should we be doing?
Okay, thank you. Let's know that the climate is changing, the environment is changing. We need to adapt. We need to mitigate, and by mitigating or by adapting, we need to do the right things. We've said it here: sort your ways. A lot of things we need to do. We need to read. We need to understand what is happening, and we need to encourage ourselves and do best. Thank you.
All right. Did you follow up with the COP29?
Yes, I did. I did follow up, and I hope that the developing or the developed countries can actually pay the underdeveloped countries or the countries in the south some form of incentives, not because of the developing countries that we have climate change. It's the very, very industrialized countries.
I want us to talk about something. Everyone is focused on, let me not say everyone, but the news about climate financing and that. Have we done well with the previous funds, given to us as
have they given any funds?
I don't think the climate fund, yes, right? People who have gotten grants, people who have written and gotten grants. Okay, you use it for this. Everything you wrote in it. Are we prepared?
For I think what I would say is that I think the negotiations are ongoing. There's no conclusive thing in negotiations. I mean, what you think is conclusive today can change tomorrow. The only constant thing in life is change. So let's just continue the conversation. I know that someday we'll get there. We'll live in a finite world in harmony with nature. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much for listening to this conversation. And don't forget, you can also keep the conversation coming up on the social media platforms. And you can follow me on X. I am Ify Inspires on X. We can continue the conversation from there. Sadly, we have come to the end of today's episode of Climate Fact File. And I want to thank our guests, our valuable guests. Dr. Andrew Ilo. It was great having you.
Thank you so much. I enjoyed my time with you.
Yeah, and I also enjoyed you in the studio here. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
To everyone who is tuning in, who is listening to this beautiful voice, thank you so much for joining in. Many thanks to the executive producer of the show, Charles Kalu. And remember, climate change is not just a future challenge, it's a present reality. And each of us has a role to play in shaping a more sustainable future. Remember, small actions today can lead to big changes tomorrow. So let's take what we've learned and apply to our daily lives. You can join us next time for Climate Fact File here on People's 105.5 FM, same time. I am Ify Onyekwere. Until next time, bye.